Hope my sniffling doesn't distract you too much.
ASAP Relli, excuse me. Take two.
Wow.
ASAP Rocky.
How dare you?
ASAP Rocky found not guilty.
Big news today. Yesterday.
Yeah.
We were texting together. It was almost like a Super Bowl result.
Yes.
Glued to the edges of our seats.
I was.
Yeah.
Did you see ASAP Rocky dive into Rihanna right after he got the not guilty verdict?
Such a likable dude. What a reaction. I don't think I've ever seen a reaction like that from a defendant. And I don't know, it's kind of nice to see.
Not guilty.
I've never seen that either. I've been doing this 25 years, 76 trials, going to start my 77th. I've never seen somebody dive like that.
Right.
Judge was cool. Judge Mark Arnold. He didn't like admonish him or just let him have his day.
Right. Some judges might have looked down on that, right? Like, hey, we need decorum in the courtroom and all that. You can't be diving around like it's a touchdown pass.
Yeah, I told you that, and I won a case in Norwalk where we actually sued and made millions of dollars. But when in the criminal case, when we got the not guilty verdict, my client hugged me, and the judge admonished me.
Oh, geez.
Said to keep it professional. That's a judge in Norwalk, which I mentioned his name a few times on the show, but I won't mention it again.
Don't blast him today.
Yeah, I won't blast him today.
It was an interesting result to see, and obviously hugely emotional for ASAP Rocky, his family, Rihanna, his partner. Did you expect that result?
You know, I've been watching this case. I don't know if you know this.
I know.
I've been in court. I don't know if I told you, I saw ASAP Rocky. I wish him good luck. I saw Joe Tacopina, who I think I have newfound respect for because he took this entire case and he flipped it around. By the way, it was a very difficult case for both the DA and the criminal defense attorney from my point of view, because on one hand, you had, in my opinion, somebody that was dishonest as a complaining witness, or what they call in law a victim, but he wasn't a victim in my opinion. He was a complaining witness. Terell Ephron, otherwise known as ASAP Relli.
And for some reason, AKA ASAP Telly.
I don't know about ASAP Telly. I know about ASAP Relli, and I'm not really sure, how the jury was able to accept his testimony. I don't know why they would accept his testimony because he lied a lot. He had he had an audio tape of him actually telling one of his friends that he's going to shake ASAP Rocky down for $30 million and he'll go away to a very, very far place. They'll never find him.
Whoops.
But then he said it wasn't his voice. He said that's fake. So, the guy didn't have a lot of credibility, but you know what's interesting?
At all. But what do you mean about accept his testimony?
Well, because he said things that weren't true.
No, but what do you? But who says they accepted it? Sounds like they didn't.
The jury. I listened to one of the jurors who was a female. There was seven female and 5 male on it, and one of the jurors after talked about it and actually accepted the fact that ASAP Relli was in fear of his life. She actually believed that a crime was committed. She said the jury believed a crime was committed. They just didn't believe whether the prosecution proved their case beyond a reasonable doubt. This whole case came down to whether the prosecution proved their case. Because that juror said, if you believe her, that they believed that a crime was committed. So what does that mean when somebody said that we believe a crime was committed? Think about it. They didn't believe that it was a prop gun, which is pretty shocking to me. They said they thought it was a real gun. At least one of the jurors claimed that. She said that most of us thought it was a real gun. Most of us thought a crime was committed, but we didn't think the prosecution proved their case, which means, Tony, the system worked.
It's kind of speaking out of both sides of your mouth to say, I think there was a crime here, but I don't think it was proven to me that there was a crime.
Well, I think if you parse through that, I think what she's trying to say is they may have had enough for probable cause to arrest, okay? But as you know, the standard is very, very high for a criminal conviction. So let me explain to you really quickly. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So in an accident case, if you sue somebody, it's 51 to 49%, right? If you convince the jury 51% that you're in the right, you win. There's something called clear and convincing evidence. That's for like restraining orders or things like that, where it's a much higher standard. Mm-hmm. And we're going to show a chart on the show, and you could see how the high reasonable doubt is. It's not whether he probably did it, more likely did it, more likely than not did it, highly likely did it, clear and convincing evidence did it. None of that. It's beyond a reasonable doubt. And what Tacopina did was he listed like 10 doubts for the prosecution to go and answer. And I think that John...
all of them went by the name ASAP Relli? All 10 doubts?
Well, most of them, yeah. and he challenged John Lewin, who was the prosecutor, to answer those questions, which he didn't answer.
Was that the prosecutor who did the closing argument?
Yes, John Lewin.
Why was he so insufferable to listen to?
Because from his point of view, and again, I'm going to play neutral arbiter of facts here. I understand both points of view. From his point of view, it was a no-brainer. He told the jury, look, it's very simple. Does that thing look like a gun or not? Don't let the defense fool you into all these other things. That's a trap.
Yeah.
Just answer yourself. Do you think somebody would carry a prop gun? That was the question. Somebody that has an AR-15, somebody that has real guns, who carries a prop gun to defend themselves? Right. Because in reality, if you use that prop gun, something bad's going to happen to you once the perpetrator finds out it's a prop gun. You're going to get your ass kicked or shot. Yeah. So nobody really... Do you know anybody that carries a prop gun?
No, and especially if you're in an environment where people around you do carry a lot of weapons, I think having a prop gun is extremely dangerous. It's way more dangerous than not being armed, as if you have the ability to trigger a gunfight, but then you have a rubber gun. It's probably the worst of all case scenarios.
So his defense didn't make sense that he had a prop gun.
The reasonable person would probably think it wasn't a prop gun. It was a real gun, given the circumstances. But obviously, in this case, even though the jury probably thought it was a real gun, they didn't convict. So can we just go back to those? I know you want to talk about the burden of proof. Let's set some percentages. These are interesting. Like you talked about a few different burdens of evidence. Let's give them some percentages. Like, what's the lightest one? What's the lightest burden?
51 to 49.
51 to
preponderance of the evidence.
Preponderance of the evidence.
Yeah.
It's kind of like more likely than not.
Yeah, it's almost like arresting somebody. When they arrested ASAP Rocky, they said, is it more likely than not that he shot the gun? And you heard the shots in the video. Looks like a gun. Boom. We got probable cause to arrest. 51 to 49%, right. More likely than not.
If you had a scale, it's just one pebble on this side, which weighs it this way a little bit.
Yeah.
That's more likely than not. But,
yes.
But that's a very low burden of proof.
Yes.
Not what we're dealing with here, because this is criminal law. What are we dealing with? You want to walk us through a few?
Well, yeah. So there's clear and convincing evidence, which I would tell you is, if I were to throw a number out there, it'd be at least 70, 75%.
Clear and convincing.
Yeah, clear and convincing. And then there's reasonable doubt, which is not really all doubt.
Beyond a reasonable
doubt. So it's not 100%, but I tell you, you got to be pretty much 85% sure.
Is that the same as shadow of a doubt?
That's just television talk.
Okay, television takes beyond a reasonable doubt and makes it beyond a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah, there's no such thing.
But beyond a reasonable doubt.
And he listed 10 reasonable doubts that he asked the judge. One was, other than Relli's word, what evidence is there that he photographed the shell casings at the scene? Remember, Relli found the bullets, which is crazy. Listen to this. The reasonable doubt to me, number one, just sounds weird when you say the cops were there at the scene, but they didn't find the bullets. But the guy that got shot, he found the bullets.
The accuser
just coincidentally found the bullets. And let me add something.
Complaining witness.
Yeah. And he says he never went to the shooting range before. And then when they show him that he went to the shooting range with a 9mm gun.
The same
casings, he just denied it. He said that wasn't true.
I'm not there. Can you lay out what happened?
Yeah.
For the one person out there who is not following the facts of this case.
All right.
What happened?
All right. A silly, stupid argument. That's what happened. The juror even said so. She said, I felt bad for everybody. It was a dumb argument. Basically, I'm going to give you some background. ASAP is a collective group of musicians and artists. I think it stands for Always Strive and Prosper, ASAP. So there's a bunch of ASAP people, the original ASAPs, and it's like the Wu-Tang Clan, or it's like, another rap group where you have a bunch of rappers.
There's one new member.
Who?
ASAP Joe.
Oh, that's right. ASAP Joe. We'll talk about that. ASAP Joe. The lawyer is officially inducted now. But basically, the ASAP team, they're all rappers, and the most famous ASAP person is ASAP Rocky. He got discovered. Mm-hmm. He put out an album, apparently, and Relli is a part of the ASAP crew. Now, Relli's not a rapper, but he does other things, like he produces and does other things, and everybody's a part of that umbrella. Mm-hmm. Now, think about this. We're in a group of people. You, me, Tony, some other people. I make it big. But you guys...
I could see that.
But you guys don't make it big. I'm
could see that.
I'm ASAP RJ.
Yeah.
So So now, what do you do with ASAP RJ?
Your head gets a little big. You start forgetting about the little people. You're choosing the color of M&Ms in your trailer. This is where we have problems with you.
Well, at some point, what you're doing is you're basically latching on to my career so that your career is good. I'm giving you business. I'm letting you run my microphones. I'm letting you do my promotions. So everybody's in this ASAP group is basically...
It's an entourage.
It's an entourage for ASAP Rocky,
You start to rise together, but then the reality is it's really one guy carrying, which is ASAP Rocky.
Yeah, and then at some point, so ASAP Rocky got really big, okay? He marries Rihanna, and this guy named ASAP Josh, he dies in the ASAP group. This is where the fight happened. So apparently, ASAP Relli is upset because supposedly ASAP Rocky didn't pay for his funeral expenses. He said, hey man, this is our group. You should handle this. You know, he's a friend of ours. I don't know what he died from. He died from something. He died young. And supposedly he was upset that ASAP Rocky didn't flip the bill. But ASAP Rocky did flip the bill. Neither here nor there. So there's another guy named ASAP Bari. He's the original founding ASAP crew member. He's like the original member.
He was mentioned a lot during trial.
Because there's a lot of respect for Bari because he started the ASAP crew. And Bari was hearing from Relli that... he's talking smack about Rocky, not picking up the bill and things like that. And when Rocky heard about that, he got upset because he was insulting his reputation and it wasn't true. So there was a heated fight about who's flipping the bill for a funeral, basically. That's what it came down to. Stupid fight. So on the date of this incident, which was, I don't know, in 2021, 2022, whenever it was, 21, July, they were hanging out in West Hollywood. Basically, according to Relli...
near Hollywood Boulevard?
Yeah, and then near the hotel, W Hotel. According to Relli, Rocky supposedly hit up Relli to set him up to shoot him. That's the story. That he got him outside, that he was leaving, he didn't know why. He told his girlfriend, I don't know, Rocky's calling me out. Went outside. According to Relli, it was Rocky that approached him, and there's a videotape of them coming, almost clashing head-to-head in a parking lot. Part of it's caught on the video. Depending on who you believe...
There's a couple of videos.
Depending on if you believe the defense or the prosecution, it was Relli that started it, it was Rocky that started it. We don't know. Relli says Rocky started it, and so forth. Then at some point you see with the pulling in the first incident, let's call it the first incident, you see some pulling with Rocky against Relli, and then at some point
that's when they're grabbing each other one-on-one, really, really kind of wrapped up in each other's, like grabbing by the hoodie, grabbing by the clothes, pushing and pulling on each other.
Yeah, and at some point you see Rocky reaching for the back of his waist, grabbing what appears to be a firearm. There's no dispute that it was a firearm of some sort. They're saying it was a prop gun. But then according to...
but it looks like a gun for all
yeah, but and now here's where the stories change. According to Rocky's friends that were there, ASAP 12E and the other guy, who was the other guy, ASAP Ills, they say that it was falling out of his pocket. He just happened to catch it when he lifted him up. All right, whatever. You know, the bro's going to jump on the grenade for this guy. These are ASAPs. You know,
sure.
ASAP Ills, ASAP Blue, all these guys, they owe their life to Rocky. So that's why I took what they said with a grain of salt. Of course you're going to back your bro up, you know?
Fair.
So, but the video I thought spoke for itself because you see the firearm. Then the second incident, when they break it up, ASAP Ills breaks it up. Supposedly, Relli attacks ASAP Ills.
How long later is that?
Like 30 seconds after, right across. They're walking across. Relli apparently just right after he sees the gun.
He freaks.
No, actually the opposite. The prosecution's like, why would ASAP Riley go after Ills? He just attacked him. Supposedly punched him in the face. But what happened?
Not Rocky who brandished the weapon.
Riley punches Ills. Yeah.
Relli.
Haymakers, Relli against Ills.
Yeah.
But they showed a video to one of the members of ASAP, 12E, and they said, you're lying. There's no way he was punching Ills because they had a video of Ills at a Rihanna concert the day after with nothing on his face.
Right.
So they were just trying to show his boys were lying for him. Just like ASAP Blue was like, oh yeah, by the way, that was my prop gun. You know, ASAP Blue said that he fell in a grenade for Rocky. Said, oh yeah, but that was my prop gun. Oh, and where is it? It's gone. We used it in a video in New York. I flew it on the airplane. It's gone. How convenient. The prop gun is gone that they're using as a defense.
Right.
So they got no firearm.
But so this incident happened. They sort of like, they kind of like manhandled each other for a second physically.
Yeah.
A gun was pulled out by ASAP Rocky.
Right.
A gun of sorts, whether
Firearm of some sort, yes.
real or not.
Right.
And then 30 seconds later, they went at it again.
Wait, before you missed one part. The one part you missed was, so yes, they got into a fight, and then the round 2 comes. Round 2 is when Relli is allegedly attacking Ills, which is why allegedly Rocky takes out the gun and fires 2 shots.
And fires 2 shots.
This time he fires 2 shots.
And
according to Relli, it's four shots. But
we hear 2 on the video.
We hear 2 in the video, and the prosecution made a point to say that Relli couldn't be lying, because if he was lying and he wanted to set up Rocky, why would he only bring 2 9mm shell casings? He'd bring 4, because the story's always been 4.
Yeah.
So he was just basically saying that Relli was being honest, that he heard 4, but it was most likely 2.
But having watched a lot of the trial, not as much as you, very little about what Relli said seemed honest, just from a gut standpoint. He just seemed like he was full of lies. But so this incident happened. 30 seconds later, again, the gun is brandished. 2 shots are fired. We know that from the videos. We see the skirmish.
Yes.
Everybody kind of scatters.
Yes.
What are the charges that result from this?
Assault with a firearm, a semi-automatic firearm.
Criminal charge.
Yes.
State of California.
Yes.
Los Angeles, right?
Yes, Los Angeles County. And he was the one that found the shell casings, by the way. He was the one that turned it and walked it in 2 days later to the police. And that's what
ASAP Relli.
Yeah, and that's what's caused the case to be filed. Other than that, they had no case.
But I'm assuming his motivation was financial, not to bring a criminal case, but to bring a civil case and make $30 million?
Well, that's where it gets interesting. So he happens to hire a colleague of mine that I know very well. Well, not very well, as a colleague of mine. I would consider him, we're friends. I'm not sure if he's representing him anymore, but he hired him to sue ASAP Rocky for $30 million.
So civil lawsuit?
Yes.
Was that actually filed before this criminal case?
I believe it was filed before. I'm not sure. I can't tell you for sure.
But that seems like it was the initial moving, sort of the activating incentive for Relli.
Well, it was something that Tacopina, the attorney for ASAP Rocky, asked him, how can you believe anything this guy says when this is a big money grab? All he cares is about money. He says in the audio tape, hey, just give me 30 mil and I'm out of here. You'll never find me anywhere in the world. So, and then the argument was, well, if you were really a victim, why didn't you go to the police first?
Who's he saying that to?
Tacopina's asking Relli, if you were really a victim, why did you go to a civil lawyer first? Why didn't you go to the criminal? Why didn't you go to call 911? They're making it seem like the only reason that Relli is doing this is because his lawyer said, you got no case if this guy's not convicted, which there's some truth to that.
That rings true, right? Because
yeah,
and there was a lot of things he tried to do to embellish the case on the criminal side to help his civil remedy. Yes. His finger, he said, the gun, the shot,
the bullet shot off his knuckles.
The bullet grazed my hand, but then
grazed 3 knuckles.
But most people looking at it kind of were thinking that doesn't look like a bullet.
No, it looked like a road rash, or he fell on the floor, he scraped against the wall when he was running, or some shrubs. The bullet wouldn't. I don't think a bullet would do that, and they didn't have anybody to testify.
Right.
Any experts to say yes, definitively that was caused by a bullet, which was one of the reasons the jury, in my opinion, couldn't come to the conclusion and say beyond a reasonable doubt, we think you prove this case.
Because the only testifying witness on the complainant side seems completely not reputable.
Well, according to one of the jurors, he was reputable. They believed that he was fearful of his life. In fact,
maybe on that point.
Yes. I think.
But in general,
I don't know.
Because he lied. It seems like he's saying this grazed my hand, but then it doesn't seem like it grazed his hand. He's saying there were shell casings, even though none of the police after searching found any. I went back and found
coincidentally
2 shell casings.
Yeah.
How many we need? 2? I got them.
Well, he needs at least 2.
Right. Yeah. Well, there were 2 shots.
2 shots, but he said he heard 4.
But had he brought 4,
that would have been too suspect.
Right.
Because that would have been too much.
Right. So he brought the right amount.
Yeah, he brought just the right amount.
Right. I don't know. A lot of things point to kind of a frivolous lawsuit by him on the civil side.
Well, I don't know, but as far as Relli's concerned, Tacopina brought up a couple of other things that were very interesting. He said, what evidence is there that a conversation ever happened on November 21st between ASAP Barley and Rocky? Because he's basically saying that all of this conversation was, the fight happened based on Relli's word. Everything relies on Relli's word. Also, He asked the jury, in light of Lou Levin and 12E's in unimpeached testimony, other than Relli's word, what evidence is there that Rocky did not carry a prop gun? So he's putting it out there like did the prosecutor. And by the way, that's a clever trick.
It's interesting.
It's a clever trick.
Shifting the burden of proof.
Yeah. So
why don't you prove that it's not a prop
right,
gun?
which is, they don't have to do that, but it's a clever little trick because it makes you think, how about if it is a prop gun, Mr. DA? Can you disprove that? It makes the jurors think. That's one of the reasons why I think that the jury couldn't really figure out whether this guy was guilty or not, because definitively they didn't bring any ballistic expert to identify any fingerprints on the shell casings. They didn't bring any experts to say whether or not those shots fired could have been from a gun, because one of the cops that testified said it could have been from a replica gun. And in fact, Tacopina asked, other than Relli's words saying that it was shots fired, could you determine that it was shots fired just from the video? He said no. So basically, everything relies on Relli. Now, you and I could watch. If I just took a look at that video, if you and I voted right now and said, right now I want you to vote, do you think that's a gun? Most likely yes or no. And you told me, by the way, the guy's claiming it's a prop gun, I'd say, get out of here. There's no way it's a prop gun. But the way Tacopina presented it, the way he brought out people that said, oh yeah, he carries a prop gun. He does it for music videos. The guy's a rapper. He does music videos. Now that's causing me to think, hey, anybody else, I wouldn't buy that. But maybe it's possible because this guy is an artist. It's possible. It's possible. And ASAP Lou fell on the grenade and said, that was my prop gun that I lent him. So he's lying under perjury, under oath. 12E is also lying under perjury. So everybody's lying for him.
Well, you could. So
the answer could be yes.
It could be yes, because as you explained,
Yeah.
they all are incentivized to sort of like have the back of their main guy,
Right.
ASAP Rocky. But let's stick on this prop gun issue. It's obviously pivotal to the case.
Yes.
And let's make sure everybody understands what is the actual significance of the prop gun. Like, I'm a little unclear. Is the question at hand whether it was or was not a prop gun? Or is the question whether the victim thinks it's a prop gun or not a prop gun? In other words, is it subjectively relevant if in Relli's mind he thought it was real? Or is it more relevant the fact whether it's real or not, objectively?
So objectively, he's being charged with assault with a semi-automatic firearm. So if he was pointing a banana at Relli, it doesn't matter that Relli thinks it's a gun. The charge itself is specific. He has to have a semi-automatic firearm. They did an all or nothing.
Got it. It's not just assault where
assault with a semi-automatic. Now they could if they were smart. And John Lewin's probably thinking about this. Going, maybe I shouldn't have charged with a semi-automatic.
Just bring assault.
Just an assault with a deadly weapon in general, and not went with the full. But the problem is, with assault with a deadly weapon is a lot less time than assault with a semi-automatic firearm. He was looking at 20 plus years max, which he wouldn't have done. But on assault with a deadly weapon, it's a lesser charge, lesser time.
So
that's just my opinion.
The criminal charge itself is kind of narrowly drawn. It's assault with this specific type of semi-automatic weapon.
Yes.
Assault with that.
Yes.
So had he beat him nearly to death with a prop gun that didn't end up being a semi-automatic weapon, actually, we would have said, oh, you brought the wrong charge because you can't say assault with a semi-automatic.
It would be assault with a deadly weapon with grave bodily injury.
Right.
That would be the charge. That would be the correct charge.
Not the charge they brought.
They didn't bring that charge. They went for all or nothing.
Okay.
They went for broke.
So now that they brought this narrow charge, what are the elements of that?
I'm glad you asked. So according to Cal Criminal Instructions, assault with a deadly weapon is basically with a firearm is use likely to produce great bodily injury, which we know it can. Number one, check.
Had you shot it off, which we think that happened twice.
All the elements are there, by the way.
But what else?
All elements are there. Did the defendant act in a way that by its nature would directly and probably result in the application of force? The answer is yes. Number two, the defendant act willfully. The answer is yes. 3, the force was likely to produce great bodily injury. Yes. Was the defendant aware of the fact that it would lead a reasonable person to realize that his act by its nature would directly and probably result in the application of force? Yes. Now here's the other part. When the defendant acted, he had the present ability to apply the force. We don't know that. Okay, that's a question.
In that case, if it was a prop gun,
no. The answer could be no.
You would have had a no.
Right. It could be no. Again, let's keep moving on. And then number 5, When the defendant acted, the person assaulted was performing. I'm sorry, skip that. When the defendant acted, he knew or should have known that the other person may have been injured. We said yes. And last but not least, the defendant did not act in self-defense. So here's two defenses that Joe Tacopina did. He basically said, if you find that it's a real gun, who cares? He acted in self-defense because Relli's a big guy. Relli kicked the crap out of Ills. They had testimony that he was working out as a big guy. They tried to create this element that is crazy. And if you saw him, he even said, can you imagine if he's acting like this, understand how he would act in real life? So self-defense was one. The other one was basically, we don't know if it's a gun. So you take your pick.
Right. So just to break that down, the defense attorney is saying, okay, if you meet all five of these elements, first of all, he's saying, I don't think you meet them because I'm telling you, it's not even a real gun. So that element's missing.
Right.
Like his knowledge that he can inflict harm, the intent is not there when it's not actually a real gun. So that's number one. If, however, I lose on that and you're trying to get my guy guilty because I lose because you hit all the elements, then there's a defense. There's an actual affirmative defense to this, and that's self-defense.
Yes.
An important defense. We want that, right? We
Yeah.
want that in the law. So, and then I remember they instructed the jury, like, whether you find that the element isn't met and therefore he's not guilty, or it's a defense and therefore he's not guilty, it's still not guilty. It could be either or.
Yeah.
And here we have it that they all found it. Was it unanimously not guilty?
Yes, it has to be.
So every juror found either one or both of those
Yes, both counts not
to
guilty.
be plausible.
Yes. In fact, so they need to decide whether or not, these are my notes, whether or not Rocky was not guilty because he only fired blanks from the prop gun. That's one thing. Or whether he acted in self-defense, or they could have decided simply that there was no reasonable doubt, which I think it's a combination. They just said, we probably think it's a gun. That's what the juror's saying. I'm not putting this in anybody's mouth. I heard the juror today talk. She said, we think a crime was committed. We believed Relli, which is crazy. I don't know who believed Relli, but she did. But she's basically saying, we don't know if a crime was committed. What does that mean? They don't know if it was a firearm. They don't know whether that was a gun. And you brought something interesting up, by the way. So the prosecutor said something that you said. If they're arguing self-defense, wouldn't they be conceding that it was a real gun? Because that's what the prosecution said. If he's acting in self-defense, the only way you get to self-defense is, number one, you have to admit you had a firearm. It said you had a firearm in the jury instructions.
I don't necessarily agree with that.
Why?
Because I could conceivably carry a prop gun that can make a lot of noise, that can sound real. I could fire off shots and you could think it's real. And that could conceivably be a self-defense weapon for me. In other words, I could have a gun that doesn't really work, but it looks real and it sounds real. And that could provide adequate self-defense. Like in this scenario, there's four guys scrambling around, throwing fists at each other, grabbing each other. One guy pulls out a gun, fires it in the air, or fires it on the ground. Doesn't hit anybody. Conceivably, nobody got hit by bullets as far as we know, and everybody rushes off. So if it was a prop gun, wouldn't you agree it did successfully provide self-defense because it ended the skirmish?
It didn't technically end. I think Relli testified that he just walked away. He apparently wasn't even upset that he used a gun. He said, fair, but could you conceive that it might end a skirmish had you made these loud, bullet-sounding noises? Well,
people might scatter.
Maybe, but according to the testimony, Rocky was stabbed in a club. Crazy people were stalking him. He has AR-15s and guns in the house.
That's true.
Why the hell would he take a prop gun out of his house? Why would he keep his arsenal at his house and only take a fake gun out? That makes no sense.
I believe he also had a concealed carry permit.
Even more toward my argument.
Yeah,
even more toward my argument. Why the hell would somebody that has the right to carry machine guns carry a fake gun?
Right.
Because it only puts you in danger. Let me put it another way. If somebody breaks into your house and you have real guns and a prop gun, which gun are you going to use to defend your house? Are you going to shoot off the fake gun or the real gun?
Right. And I think the scenario is a little different in your house than outside your house.
All right, fine. So
it's harder to conceive that you'd use the prop gun in your house.
Okay.
Because you're literally in your domain.
Fair.
It's almost do or death.
Fair.
Like
Yep.
they're on your territory. Your family's there.
Right.
You're either going to now actually fend them off or not. Like they're there.
Right.
Whereas in the street, it's like, hey, is this going to turn into a real thing or not?
Right.
Let me fire off a couple fake shots and see if I could just end it. without pulling out a real
Right.
gun.
Well,
I'm only trying to steel man, I guess, the defense attorney's case here. I could see the possibility. I'm not saying it's a probability, but there's a possibility he might have carried a prop gun around as a deterrent. There's a possibility.
So here's what the prosecutor said, John Lewin, and I'm almost saying it verbatim what he said regarding that. He said after real security issues for Rocky, after being stabbed with a knife, Rocky got a fake gun. It doesn't sound right. Your fake gun is completely useless. You can't use it in a serious situation. The security advice is absolutely illogical and absurd. It doesn't make sense for this trial. And it's more absurd because Relli was supposed to know Rocky carried a fake gun. With that logic, Rocky could have popped a balloon to scare him. It would have had the same effect as a gun.
Why was Relli supposed to have known that Rocky carried?
Because apparently everybody knew that Rocky carried a fake gun, and Relli said, put that fake ass gun away, allegedly, from 12E's testimony.
That makes no sense.
None.
Yeah, that makes no sense. So if the defense's claim is he carried a fake gun sometimes for deterrence, even though he had an arsenal of real guns, I could kind of buy that. Again, I don't find it likely or probable, but it's possible.
Right.
In other words,
carrying it all the time? Just a prop gun?
It's within the realm of possibility that along with your real arsenal, you would have a prop gun. It's just within the realm of possibility. That's all I'm saying. I don't necessarily buy it.
Yeah.
But if you then further that narrative and say, also, everybody knew he had a prop gun, including Relli.
Right.
Now you kind of blown the balloon.
And
it doesn't make any sense.
And on top of it, 12 claims that when Relli saw the gun, he wasn't scared. He said, put that fake ass gun away.
That would also not make sense because now you're trying to use a fake gun to deter someone who knows it's a fake gun.
That's what I'm saying. That's what the prosecution, that makes no sense.
That level has gone
There's
too
a
far.
lot of things in this trial that didn't make sense, but the jury did their job. They were able to parse everything like surgeons and go through everything and say, okay, what has the prosecution proven? We don't know if it's a real gun. We think it's a real gun, probably a real gun, more likely a real gun.
And we're with...
Clear and convincing it's a real gun. But for the purpose of reasonable doubt, I have doubts, like the jury said. Why? Because Ephron, Relli, lied a lot.
A lot
about his voice. Even denied. He was very combative. By the way, he yelled at the Takapina, cursed in court. He was puffing his chest. He's the worst witness ever.
He came off about as unlikable as you could come
Absolutely,
off on the stand.
So you have an unlikable person with an extremely likable person on the other side. And what is the evidence? Okay, you have a gun, but could we prove it's a gun? You know, I've always wondered, here's a thought. Instead of putting on this defense about a prop gun, why didn't they just put on a defense and say, we don't even know if that's a real gun and leave it at that? Do you say, why a prop gun?
Because it has to fire and it has to make noise to corroborate the video.
Yeah, even the pop sound.
It can't be rubber.
Yeah.
It's got to fire.
Yeah.
And a prop gun at least fires.
It's exactly like the prosecution said. They had a really, really tough case. You had the firing sounds, right, that he couldn't escape. He had what looked to be a gun in his pocket. You couldn't escape that.
Dude, the prop gun was the only way out.
And then on top of all that, you have Relli possibly setting him up with the 9mm casing. So he was like, "Oh crap! Now what do I do?" So
that was a stupid move.
So you had to go with the prop gun defense. Yeah,
I liked the defense poking holes into Relli's claim. They're like, okay, so he claims he went back to the scene and collected these casings, right? Show us cell phone data.
That's right. Metadata. Where is it?
Just show us.
Right.
Show us that he triggered that antenna because he walked by that area. How does it work? You automatically have GPS data for cell phones, right? Everybody should know wherever you go, your cell phone is always pinging the nearby tower, whether you're active or not, right? So show us that. Show us that he went back to the scene.
They could have had
nothing.
They could have had an expert to testify that the photos that were taken were at the scene, at the time, at that location.
Something.
But they didn't have that.
Yeah.
There was a lot. They were relying really, really heavily on Relli.
How about this one? He gave his text messages over to law enforcement or to the prosecution, and they made ASAP Rocky look pretty bad. And then forensics realized, oh, this guy deleted a bunch of messages before he turned his phone over. So then they looked at those messages, the ones that ASAP Relli deleted. Those made him look really bad. They made him look like the aggressor. So you're going to delete a bunch of photos a bunch of text messages that make you look bad and then turn your phone over?
Right.
And you have no proof that you went back to the scene?
Well, my big problem is I find it very hard to believe that Los Angeles Police Department who had able and very experienced police officers at the scene cannot find the shell casings, but for some reason, Relli goes back an hour and a half later. I guess an argument can be made. He knows the spot where the shots happened, I guess.
But how would you know how they ricocheted, where they went?
I mean, you could walk around, I guess, but it just...
You don't think the police walked around?
Of course they did. Of course they did. Of course they did. That's why...
Crazy.
That's why I'm saying
It's ludicrous.
Either the LAPD is the most incompetent organization in the world and Relli's just a master investigator that found this.
Right.
Or Relli's lying.
Right.
So that's the problem. Everything that Relli is saying, it doesn't make sense. That's the problem with the case. Relli's testimony was what caved in the case, in my opinion.
And then there was another thing he said that hurt his case, where I think he was on video or on audio recording. You refresh my memory, where he pretty much said, yo, Rocky did this, he did that. He tried to chest bump me, and then he pulled a gun out in self-defense. He literally says that. So in his own perception, in retelling what happened, he actually said, he chest bumped me, and then he pulled a gun out in self-defense.
I don't remember the self-defense
Yeah,
part. Yeah,
it was part of the defense's closing statement. I went back and looked at it. I was like, wow.
I didn't hear that. I wrote down the notes on the thing.
I'm telling you it happened. Okay. And then so the defense attorney said, by the witness's own words, you have him telling you that this gun was pulled out by self-defense. That's it.
Right.
That's it. Game over.
I remember that.
Where he did that? He's like, game over.
I remember that. But the problem is with that, the prosecution came back and said they're admitting that it was a gun. And that was like a double-edged sword.
It is kind of
You're arguing, okay, we admit we have a gun now, and we use that gun in self-defense. So the prosecution said you can't have it both ways. You either had a prop gun or you had a real gun and use it in self-defense. You can't use a prop gun in self-defense under this code section because we're charging with a semi-automatic firearm.
Right, except for, as we know in the law, you can have it both ways in terms of you could put forth to the jury, hey, this is my theory. Right. And if you don't buy that, okay, back up. Now this is my backup theory. You can do that.
Which only causes doubt. That's all it does.
Probably most
It's not an absolute defense. An absolute defense would be like... you stab me with a knife, I stab you back, knife to knife. This Relli doesn't have a gun. So remember something, you can't take a gun to a fist fight. You can't take a gun to a knife fight.
Well,
it's got to be reasonable force. And there's reasonable force jury instructions that say that if the jury thinks that you're not using reasonable force, that self-defense is out the door.
But you can, as far as, correct me if I'm wrong, but you can use a firearm in reasonable self-defense if you fear imminent harm from a physical punch.
Only death.
If you feel imminent harm or imminent...
Death. It's got to be death to use a gun.
Death or imminent harm, right?
Yeah, well, death has got to be included because gun...
Death
imminent bodily injury or death.
To you or a third person.
Right, or death, right.
To you or a third person.
So they were using basically Relli's big stature and his working out to show there was going to be imminent bodily injury. And that's why they were saying that Ills was injured, that he threw haymakers. That's why they were using the self-defense for the gun.
Yeah, if someone's coming at you and they're punching you
haymakers.
And they're about to drop you to the floor and then maybe put you in a chokehold and knock you out, you're allowed to use a firearm in self-defense. It doesn't have to be even.
Yeah.
Hey, he doesn't have a gun, I can't use a gun.
It's got to be reasonable. It's got to be reasonable. It says the jury instruction says it's got reasonable force may be applied. It's based on it's an objective standard, not a subjective standard. Mm-hmm. So
to deter that risk of bodily injury or imminent death or bodily injury, you know, I would argue that the jury could find it reasonable to use a firearm. I mean, to deter that risk of.
But the point is that they have to agree that it's a firearm, not a prop gun.
Right. Right.
So what Tacopina's doing is having both his cake and eat it too. He's saying, by the way, they didn't prove it was a gun, therefore is not guilty. But if you think that he used a gun, we have the right to use it in self-defense.
Yes. And if you think that it was a gun, we're telling you it was used in self-defense, even though we're also arguing at the same time that it wasn't a gun.
Yeah.
If you do believe on your own that we're lying about that part and it actually is a gun, then what we're telling you is he used it in self-defense.
That's right.
And here's the witness, the complaining witness himself saying that it was pulled in self-defense.
Right. And
very confusing.
And the prosecution used that to say that doesn't make sense. They're playing both sides of the field, that they don't know they lost their direction. He said that Tacopina's closing argument was like an airplane that took off with no flight plans and he just kept doing circles in the air and he did a crash landing. So,
But he landed it nice and smooth, though, it turns out.
but I think what Tacopina did was it looked like that, but his confusion was just genius.
Doubt.
He sowed a lot of doubt. He made me, even though it was a 5-hour long closing argument, he pointed. There was a lot of great points that he hit, and all the jury had to do was select one. Really quickly, John Lewin said, it's not about picking one doubt. He said he's making it look like you could take a piece of cookie, and if you don't like it, you could throw away the whole cookie. But that's what he did.
That's what
Tacopina did.
Yeah.
He made it into a cookie. He said, look, this is a cookie, and if a little bit of it is rotted, throw the whole cookie away. But what Lewin was saying, no, if the cookie still looks like a cookie and it's still edible, you could eat it.
Good luck, though, man. It just, they're too much discredited in his own witness. Did you see what the prosecutor said when he first came out after that long, grueling defense closing statement?
Which part?
He came out with this insulting thing.
Towards Rihanna?
No. When he first came out, after the defense kind of made their first closing statement, the prosecutor came out and he was like, I had a nightmare waiting for that to end. I actually had a nightmare last night or something like that. He goes, I had a nightmare, jury, that I was going to come out here and he was going to still be doing his closing statement and he was going to say, oh, I'm halfway through my closing statement.
I think I remember that.
Then he kind of brought more insults. He said, I had a grandchild during the time it took him to have that closing statement. Like he threw these insults out and they were kind of like biting and weird comments. It made him even more unlikable than he was, if that was possible. This prosecutor, it seemed like the jury did not like that.
I thought so too, but that one juror said that he did a bang up, quote unquote, a bang up job. Thought he did a great job. Thought Tacopina did a good job. Thought he did a good job. So,
hey, listen, he did a bang up job, but you didn't give him the case as a juror.
Only because she said that they didn't feel that they proved the case. That's it on a technicality.
That's his one job.
Right.
That's his one bang up job to do is prove it.
Well, they said that he had a difficult time because there were questions that he could not answer, that they had questions. And because of those questions, they had to let Rocky go. And by the way, she chastised him on the audio. And she's like, well, I hope he realizes that a crime was committed and that, he has a family. And basically translated, I hope he realized that he got away with it. That's what she was saying in not so many words.
To ASAP Rocky.
To ASAP Rocky.
But
She
this is
completely one juror, but she's saying that the other jurors felt like that too.
Like whatever, you didn't do everything great. You did something wrong. You pulled out a weapon.
She thought he committed a crime, but at ASAP Rocky basically got found guilty because they couldn't prove it. In her mind, she said that they had to actually change her mind. When they walked in, she said a majority, whatever the majority is, thought that he didn't do it. But there was still few that thought he did, and they had to be convinced. So a few believed in Relli. They believed in the prosecution's argument. And then they brought him back to earth and said, look, here's the bottom line. There are questions they can't answer. Mm-hmm. And if they can't answer these questions, we're not going to go convict this guy because we have doubts.
Yeah. And I'm not sure they believed in Relli because you don't have to believe in Relli to believe that a crime was committed. Like Relli,
no, you don't. That's
Relli
what the
could be
prosecution
a
said.
massive liar. He seems like he lied a lot.
Yes.
And yet it could be true at the same time.
Yes.
That Rocky pulled out a gun and fired 2 shots.
But it's hard to do when you got a liar that you don't like.
Exactly.
The jurors aren't going to go to bat for you. They're not going to be like, "Come on, I think
Relli was Rocky's just best possible witness. He saved Rocky in this scenario. I know he caused the entire thing too, but being as discredited as he seemed on the stand really seemed to save Rocky. I think.
Yeah, of course.
It injected all the doubt that he needed into the elements of the crime.
In my opinion, yes. But there were apparently a few of the jurors, they didn't care. They were like, yeah, he lied about some things, but the general statement that he made, we believed. The general statement that he got shot at, we believed. He might have lied about his Instagram and his jet planes that he had. Mm-hmm. He may have lied about, his status and his stature in ASAP. He may have lied about other little small things. Mm-hmm. And he might be rude and he might be unorthodox on a stand. But that doesn't mean in our mind that didn't happen. We saw the video and we saw the way they were moving on the video, scrambling like that. It just made sense that he might have got shot. That's what the juror said.
Right. And that's commendable for the jury to actually be able to parse all of that.
Amazing.
Right? Really to, like a surgeon, like you said.
Absolutely.
To be able to say, hey, we understand this guy seems like he lies.
Yes.
And he told a bunch of lies in front of our eyes. However, 2 things can be true at the same time. That dude's a liar. And this dude probably pulled out a real gun and shot.
Right.
Maybe not at him, but as a deterrent or not.
Yes.
But I would imagine just pulling out a gun and firing it twice on Hollywood Boulevard is a major crime, regardless of who you aim it at, regardless of your intent. I mean, I don't know what intent you could have. Those bullets could hit a kid.
Yes, that's what the prosecution said. It could ricochet and kill the family.
Easily.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, we're walking on Hollywood Boulevard
Yes.
all the time. Like, don't be pulling out firearms and just shooting.
Like I said in the beginning of the podcast, this is over a stupid fight about ASAP Josh and who paid for his funeral expense. Even the juror said it was so silly. ASAP could have handled it better, in my opinion. He didn't even need to pull out a prop gun. He's got his 2 boys there. He's got Ills. He's got 12E. They're backing him up. He's a famous star. They weren't going to let anything bad happen to him. Plus, Relli's not going to kick his ass because Relli needs him. You know, ASAP Rocky's the money bag. So I just think that ASAP Rocky, in my opinion, may have escalated the situation, over-exaggerated his anger a little bit. But, you know, that's just my opinion based on watching the video. What do you think about it? When you saw the video, what comes to your mind?
So my big takeaway is that, I mean, God, I lean towards it's probably a real gun, right? Just gut feeling. I mean, you're hanging out in this environment. Everybody around you is packing. You've seen other rappers and artists get shot. There are people threatening you. You have an arsenal of weapons in your home. You have a conceal and carry permit. For all intents and purposes, if you're going to defend yourself, you're going to carry a real weapon. So my gut goes to it's probably a real weapon. We see the video from 2 separate angles, 2 separate videos. We hear the shots in the video. So most likely, in my estimation, ASAP Rocky probably pulled out a real gun and fired it twice to deter what was about to happen, which was maybe a physical fight where he was going to get his ass beat, or he was trying to defend himself and his buddies. I do believe that. And it seemed like it was a real weapon. So it seems to me like a crime was committed in terms of brandishing a weapon and firing it in public, but that there was an element of self-defense to it.
Let me ask you a very simple question. If everybody knew that ASAP Rocky carried a prop gun, assume that for the sake of this hypothetical, ASAP 12E and Ills, who were there, knew he carried a prop gun, then why is it after ASAP Rocky fired the prop gun, did ASAP 12E run behind a wall and hide?
Yeah.
And why did Ills run behind another place and hide if it was just a prop gun?
Exactly.
Why did they act as though it was a real gun?
Agreed. And more to the reasons why I don't believe it was a prop gun.
I don't think so either. But I will tell you, the jury came, in my opinion, to the correct result because there's questions out there that the prosecution couldn't put in the final nail in the coffin. And I'll tell you, I'm not really sure if any other person would have caught that break, Tony. I've done 76 jury trials. I think this guy caught the break because of a celebrity factor. You know, that's a big factor involved. The factor, why would he do this? Why would he throw away his life?
Super likable dude, too.
He looks likable. You know, I'm not saying it's just because it's ASAP Rocky, but I think they really, how can you not think about that, right? When you're thinking about whether he's guilty or not. Well, you're factoring all that stuff, and they're seeing Rihanna and his kids coming into court.
It's a big deal.
And most of the people are family members, according to the jury. They see that he has a family. They see as a kid. ASAP Lou let one slip in on the jury, which I thought was a punch to the downstairs to the prosecution when he said, "Oh, I don't want my friend to go away for 24 years." Once he said that,
that's bad, right?
Once he said that, yeah, I was like, "Holy crap! This guy jumped on Rocky should buy him a house tomorrow." Because this guy freed him by saying that. It caused the jurors in their mind to say, whoa, let's really consider the what's going on here.
Like nobody said anything about 24 years. What are we talking about?
Right.
But you're not supposed to say that.
Right. And they're not supposed to. And by him doing that, I think it woke the jury up to say, let's examine this shit really, really carefully.
And we don't know that 24 years was actually on the table.
No.
That was the max possible charge the mathematicians came up with when they added it all up.
It's the high term double. So he's not going to get the high term double.
It doesn't mean the judge would have done that.
No.
Yeah.
No, he would have got probably the same. I think the offer was the exposure 6 years on a low term. He might have got 6 years on the low term.
So you're saying the mention of that 24 years could have put the fear into the jury going, whoa, this seems like excessive now. He didn't even kill anyone. He didn't even hit anyone for all intents and purposes. And maybe the jury gets prejudiced into a not guilty verdict just by hearing 24 years.
Well, I know it was a concern for John Lewin, because John Lewin made it a point to talk about in his closing argument to say, you know what, he told you it's 24 years because he wants you to consider that so that you come back and vote not guilty, because he wants you to believe it's not worth the time.
Yeah.
So John Lewin made it a point of that.
He did. And then he kind of lectured them and said, you're not allowed to consider that.
Right.
And if you see the guy next to you considering it, stop him.
Right.
You need to stop each other.
Right. But it's like what we learn in law school. When you say a word, you can't undo it. Pink elephant.
Yeah.
How do you undo that thought now?
You can't.
You already heard me say pink elephant. You're thinking of pink elephant.
Yeah.
You can't unring the bell.
That's right. You can't.
So
that was a losing battle.
Yeah. ASAP Blue was the one that came to Rocky's.
So it seems like just real person, non-legal discussion. We're kind of gut feeling. We seem to agree that it probably was a real gun.
Yes.
Now, do we agree that it seemed like it was brandished in self-defense and fired in self-defense? Or do you feel like that was really with intent to assault, more of an aggravating, positive force by ASAP Rocky as opposed to in defense?
I didn't see any injuries on Ills. If I saw injuries on ASAP Ills, I'd tell you, yeah, it's probably self-defense. But I didn't see any injuries on Ills.
What about just the general circumstances of a brawl out in the middle of the street and how anyone could get hurt? Is that not imminent enough, probably?
It's an argument you can make to the jury, but without some serious injury, how can you possibly say it was warranted?
It's not imminent.
And serious bodily injury on top of it. If you have like a bruise or a black eye, and you have Relli who's 6'2", you maybe could make an argument that it was necessary, but there's no injuries to ASAP.
But could you argue there's imminent risk of bodily injury?
No, it can't be future harm. It's got to be imminent harm. So you can't base it on what may or may not happen. Imminent means in the immediate future.
It's about to happen.
It's about to happen now.
Now.
Imminent, yes. Not, well, maybe...
Like it's going to happen.
Right. It's not like, well, he's going to go home and then come back and it's going to happen. That's not imminent. It's happening now, and you're taking precautions and steps now.
Right.
So,
So then it kind of feels like maybe in a perfect world, if we're trying to be like legal purists, maybe the perfect result from a legal purity standpoint would have been, yeah, he is guilty of pulling out this gun, firing 2 shots on Hollywood Boulevard in public. And what is the real sentence for that? Months as a deterrent for future bad behavior? Not 24 years.
Well, the thing is, anytime you shoot a gun at somebody, that's automatic prison.
Did he shoot it at somebody?
Well, according to ASAP 12, he pointed at his chest. And according to the prosecution, he was trying to line up and trying to shoot him while Relli is holding ASAP Ills as a human shield. And Rocky is trying to shoot him, according to Relli, directly in the chest and the arms twice.
If that's true.
Well, you see the video, watch the video, everybody's scrambling, and you see 2 sticks that are next to each other, and they're holding each other, and one stick is around, and you're pop, pop, pop.
Yeah.
But the thing is, the video is so grainy. It's
really
so hard.
blurry. It's really
you really
far
got to try to make the video out in your mind to understand what's going on.
I thought it was interesting when the defense attorney sort of was reenacting it live with his own body gesture while watching the video with the jury. He did like this step forward, bend down, shoot at the ground.
Yeah, I saw that.
And he synced it perfectly with the gunshot in the video. So as you hear the gunshot, he goes, boom, and he aims down. It almost imprints this visual into the jury that ASAP Rocky aimed down and fired at the ground.
That's what he was trying to get out. He was trying to insinuate through his actions.
Interesting.
Yeah, well, that's not what I saw. I didn't see that.
In the video, you mean?
Yeah, it did. The video was look.
It's grainy and far away.
So reasonable doubt, the video sucks. Reasonable doubt, I have no idea if the 9mm were planted or not. Reasonable doubt, Ephron, Relli said he never went to a shooting range, which we know he did. He was caught lying about that. Relli said it's not his voice, which clearly, if you listen to the audio, it's his voice. There's a lot of lies. There's a lot of reasonable doubts. And Tacopina was brilliant in saying, pick one. Pick any doubt. Any one of these things is doubt. And I don't know why John Lewin kept back and going saying, that's not true. It's a totality of everything. It's not a cookie. You can't undo it.
I don't get that.
And he didn't approach any of the questions that he answered. And Tacopina said, he's not going to answer those questions. I'm going to leave it here. And he fell right into the trap. Let me tell you a quick story. I did the same exact thing in a murder case where I put 10 reasonable doubts. By the way, that's the thing that criminal defense attorneys do.
Just stack it with a bunch of doubts.
No, we got it from the top 10. David Letterman. Do you remember David Letterman used to do top 10?
Of course.
So criminal defense attorneys started doing that, the top 10 reasonable doubts list.
We're old. I remember that.
So we learn this through seminars. That's not like something that Joe Tacopina. We learn this through seminars to present 10 questions. You leave it on there on the chart and you walk away and you tell the jury, let them go answer those questions. 9 times out of 10, the prosecutor won't do it because he can't answer those questions.
Well, they don't want to.
They can't.
Yeah.
So it was really good. But the questions he asked the jury, there were very sensible questions that they couldn't answer. He had 10 of those questions.
Do you have them?
Of course. I already talked about them. I said all that. I'll go over some more. It said, in light of Lou Levin and 12E's unimpeached testimony, other than Relli's word, what evidence is there that Rocky did not carry a prop gun? That was number 7.
Yeah, shifting the burden.
Other than Relli's word, what evidence is there that he was shot by an operable semi-automatic fire gun? How about that question he didn't answer? Let me tell it to you again. Other than Relli's word, what evidence is there that he was shot by an operable semi-automatic firearm? There was no evidence to that.
Yeah. You would think if a bullet grazed your finger, you could have gone to the ER and some doctor would have said, oh, that looks like a bullet grazed your finger, right? There would have been some evidence that a bullet grazed your finger.
I would think you'd get a medical expert at the very least. He didn't go to a hospital till days later, all right? He got it checked. There's no medical report saying that this is most likely a bullet wound or gunshot wound. There's no physics professor, somebody could say the trajectory of the bullet could have caused that. Nothing. There's no evidence.
Nada. That's
So,
the thing.
and it doesn't look like a bullet. I mean,
Doesn't.
what are the odds that your bullet is going to graze just your top 3 knuckles?
Yeah.
And it looks like a scrape.
Yeah.
If you take a look at it, it literally looks like he scraped it against the wall or on the floor or something.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it's a complete lie. See, that's the problem. He could have been a victim, a true victim, but he decided to embellish
Too much.
what I call sweetening the case. It's like when there is a case, some people like to sweeten it, put a little sugar on top to make it
lot
better.
of sugar,
This
bro.
guy put a lot of sugar on
A
there.
lot of sugar.
Yeah, and he got caught. He got caught, with the fact that the sugar was just too much.
Yeah. What do you make of the fact that ASAP Rocky didn't accept the plea deal? That pretty generous plea deal that was handed out early on. 6 months, 180
6
days?
months. He would have been out in 90 days if he took the deal.
So effectively a 90-day sentence.
Yes.
What do you make of the fact that he just turned that down flat?
I'll tell you why he turned it down. Because if he accepted the deal and said he was guilty, he would have got sued for $30 million, probably lost $30 million, and he would have lost his Gucci contract, all his other fashion contracts. He's going to be in a couple of movies with Denzel coming up as a
That's
co-star.
interesting.
He would have lost everything. So
it's almost a trap. Like, take this, dude. It's only 90 days, but then you lose
then
on
you
the
lose
civil
everything.
side 30 mil.
yeah, 30 mil, and then you think Rihanna's going to stay with him after he gets, stuck with a $30 million bill, and he has no more prospects, and the guy's broke as a joke. Rihanna's going to stay with a guy like that?
Was there a way to take the 90 days but plead no contest and therefore have no evidentiary impact on the civil
A
side?
no contest plea has the same force and effect as a guilty plea, but may not be used against you in civil court, but that's not a guarantee. They could still bring it in.
And the jury would know about it somehow.
It could
Or
possibly.
the judge. Would it be a judge in that case?
So ASAP's lawyer would try to keep it out, say, no, that's a no contest plea. That doesn't count. The other attorney, who's going to be Brian Hurwitz, that's Relli's attorney, Brian's going to say, no, that does come in, and they're going to have a hearing on it, whether the judge is going to say, yes, I'm going to accept that as a guilty plea, or not use it as an admission in this case.
Isn't there a pink elephant problem there too?
Of course, but that's
just in discussing it, you're already...
well, the jury's not going to hear about it, but that's why Rocky didn't want to take the deal, in my opinion, because if he takes the deal, it presents a huge danger to a civil lawsuit, a huge danger to his career, and all of that means he loses everything. His family, his contracts. It's worth, in his mind, it's worth it to go to prison, try to, avoid prison and try to fight this thing to get his life back. And look, it paid off.
It paid off.
His gamble
100%.
paid off. So
I was just wondering if for you it had any value as to whether he was guilty or not, but it sounds like it doesn't because there was enough incentive to not take
there was tons of incentive not. Now, obviously, Joe Tacopina is getting up there and doing PR for him and saying, well, he's always been innocent. That's why he fought for his innocence. That could be possibly true. But the real reason is it was game over if he pled guilty. If it was the jail time is the least of his worries. Once you plead guilty, then Relli would have went to his attorney and said, aha, we got him. He admitted that he shot me. Now it's just a matter of damages. Now you're going to pay me whatever for pain and suffering, right? Pain and suffering, punitive damages. So Rocky didn't want that. Rocky didn't want to drag his kids, his family through years and years of litigation. By winning this case, effectively, he cured the cancer before it spread.
Wow. Fascinating case, man. Well done by the defense.
Joe Tacopina, in my opinion, should get the Attorney of the Year award for flipping this case around. John Lewin did a decent job. I know you don't like his attitude. Yeah, he has a really bad attitude, but the technical skills are good. He's got very good technical skills. He just needs to work on his social skills.
Copy that.
By the way, did you know that they almost got into a fight in the hallway, like physical fight?
Really?
Yeah. Joe Tacopina.
So who would win that? The defense would kick his ass.
Yeah, Joe's huge.
He would wipe the floor with the prosecutor.
Joe's huge, and he took off. Apparently, I'm not sure if I'm mistaken this, but I think he took off his jacket at some point. He was in a contentious hearing. Did you see that? He took off his jacket. He looked like he was about to fight. Like you could Google that. He was like, yeah. So these guys really don't like each other, and
I could tell that.
I mean, there's personal animosity towards each other. But
do you think that prosecutor carries a weapon for self-defense?
I don't know.
Do you think it's a prop gun?
Probably not a prop gun, but I could see John Lewin carrying a gun. He seems like the kind of strong man that'll carry a gun. And the problem is you have two.
In that case, he's a pretty good prosecutor. I actually like his style a lot. I think he's really good at what he does. He's a real professional, good-looking guy. I mean, what are you going to do?
You see, the problem is you got two type A personalities, right? John Lewin might actually be a really good criminal defense attorney with that passion, but he was unfortunately misdirecting his passion to the wrong person. You don't back a guy like Relli up. I mean, they should have, Tacopina's got a point. They should investigate Relli right now. They should investigate him for perjury.
Right.
Because he committed a lot of perjury.
Dude, it seems like it.
Ask me why they're not going to do that, though. They'll never do that.
I want to guess. Why would they not do that? I mean, it would only make their initial case look really bad. So it's almost like then they were sort of accompanying a perjurious.
Well, that's part of it. It makes them look bad, but also the real reason is it causes a chilling effect on future complaining witnesses and victims. So if you find out that there's a chance that you could go to jail for accusing somebody, that's the way you're going to look at it. Like, I was raped, I'm going to accuse this guy.
Yeah.
But then, oh wait, I could go to jail if the lawyer makes me out to be a liar. No, thank you. I'm not going to get involved.
So then there's a general public policy reason to not prosecute complaining witnesses.
This is a policy, yes.
For perjury?
Yes.
Just like to not have a chilling effect?
Yes.
Keep those complaints coming. We're not going to hurt you.
Right. I've actually exposed, just like Tacopina's, I've exposed people perjuring themselves, like straight up lying on the stand. They never went after them because the policy is if we go after them, nobody's going to want to cooperate with us in the future.
That makes sense.
So that's the chilling effect that I'm talking about.
Got it. Thanks for breaking it all down.